Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Dianna Dini.
Hey, Dianna, have you played around with AI much lately since our chat with G?
Yes, I have, and different models, different platforms. There's one that I like where you can upload your own files and then, query questions about it to learn more about what you're looking at. It's all been very interesting, but it's not always. It can be a helpful start, but it's definitely not spitting out like the finished product kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tried it once. There was one, I don't remember the name of that app, but you upload I took some of my blog posts and thought, well, for SEO stuff for the site, I need to write some metadata, right? That says this is a quick summary of it, and it shows up in search results and stuff like that. So I said, well, I'll just upload the article, and the ones that were only text. There's a handful of authors and contributors on the site do video, and others do lots of graphics and their charts and images and stuff like that tell a good part of the story. So I found that those just ignored the graphics. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's odd.
Oh.
And so I tried it with a handful of my own articles that were all text, basically. And I need a summary that fits the constraints of this metadata box. And it was, I don't remember what the length is. It's like, say, 150 letters to 200 letters or something like that. It's sort of like a tweet limitation.
Yeah, it's not very long.
It's basically a reasonable sentence that gives you a snapshot of it expands on the title, and it has some other constraints. It has to have the keywords in it. It has to do a bunch of other stuff. So, and it said it could do that. And I thought, all right, cool. Load it up. And part of it was, I don't think I wrote anything about what this is summarizing. And I looked at the article and says, okay, I need to rewrite this because it's really bad. So I don't know if you've ever done training for presenting where they videotape you and then they give you the videotape and then critique your presentation on video with you. And it's like listening to my own voice on a recording. It takes work to deal with that and so here's somebody, it's like a bad English teacher telling me my stuff was crap.
Okay.
And it was, but that doesn't matter. No, you didn't talk about that at all. What are you thinking? It didn't come across with attitude or anything like that, but it was, oh, okay. And then other articles, it was, I don't know. I couldn't figure out where they came up with it. They used phrases and words that weren't even maybe it was on the back side of the screen or something. It was an image left over from the last thing I had on the computer. Like, where did you come up with that? I'm writing an article about Bible analysis or control charts, and it's talking about engineering management in the plastics industry, which had nothing to do with the article. Not mentioned, wasn't the example. You're like, what?
So. Yeah. I've had situations like that too, where you ask it to give it a summary of something. It's not quite right, and it looks like when you're trying to define the scope of it, it's like it also takes into consideration everything that you've asked it before, unless you clear out the prompt or something. But I'm still learning how to do it better.
Yeah, it's part of the process for me too. Although I did run into an article a couple of days ago that there's this a type of use of AI called an agent that basically you set up and it just runs autonomously for you. And so it can, what this guy was trying to do was, what his example was that is monitoring markets and what's in the news and trying to make stock market trades
Oh.
and setting it up to be autonomous. And he had a system that he'd been using successfully, but it took a lot of time. And he thought, instead of me checking, statements from different companies and press releases from other companies I'm interested in, checking 100 of those things and then picking one to make a trade about. Well, I could write an agent, AI agent that could scan all those things and then present the the choices I would make
Mhm.
anyway, and then have it do the next step of actually executing the trade.
Well, sounds like it could add efficiency.
And I think that was the thought. But he said, well, it's possible. We have the technology now to write it up so that it would execute the trades just autonomously for you. And he said, I could, you know, instead of spending 3 or 4 hours going through all the data and stuff and then making the trades, if it comes up with answers that I would have got anyway, I could go 1,000 companies I'm tracking instead of 100, because it'd be so much faster. And then I could have it do the trades, and it'd be just really nice.
Uh-huh.
And, well, you know where I'm going, but the way he explained it is that, if you ask an AI a simple question, what is 2 + 2, you'll get an answer. Right. If you I asked one early on in my exploration of what do these things do, is who is Fred Schenkelberg? And I got 3 slightly different variations of my bio. And okay, one was written in first person, one was in third person, and one was misspelled my name. But that's okay, because I probably did that anyway.
Well, were they accurate?
They were in my bio. They were almost, I would say, out of a 250 word bio, which I have all over the place, and it's on LinkedIn. It's on all my different various sites. It's just my standard. I got to put a bio up somewhere. That's the one I use.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't have a Wikipedia page that somebody else wrote. So, but it would probably be my bio anyway. And so I would say, I didn't count it, but out of the, say, 250 words that was in the bio, 240 were, other than tense changes, were word for word right off my bio. I mean, it just copied, and none of them referenced where they got it. I was like, they're getting better at doing that now with the Google chat, and I'm trying to think of the third one, Claude. All gave me almost the exactly same answer. All of them almost verbatim my bio, and none of them referenced where they got it.
Well, and they're pulling from what's available on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like you have good control over your bio
Yeah.
on the internet. They're all
Yeah.
pulling from probably the same source.
Oh yeah.
So that's good. But yeah, so sometimes you don't know where they're pulling from. I think they've gotten better at referencing where they're getting information.
I think they were getting a lot of pushback going, well, where is this? Where are you getting this? How can I, go check this? Or what's the context of where you pulled it from? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what the guy's point was, is that the more complex the situation, and he was looking at, press releases and news writers or financial writers, or as whatever they're called, talking about the markets and different companies, and trying to make an assessment as, is this a good time to buy or to sell? And there's a lot of decisions in there. And so it's a bit more complex. And what his main point was, is that the AI is good at, doing what you tell them. And if you give them decent prompts, and it's like writing software, check these sources, check this stuff, look for these keywords, compile this and do a summary. He thought, well, it's doing that pretty well, but out of 100 companies, it would make 1 or 2 mistakes. And then the next step is kind of looking at market forces and trends and stuff like that. And then it has a small chance of making a mistake. And he said, let's just use the example in which us in the stats and quality world kind of know is that if you have a 10% chance of making an error for each step of the process, the probability of getting a working functional product at the end of the 5 steps for production is pretty darn low.
Yeah,
It's around 50% or less.
because it compounds.
Right. And so here I've got this agent looking at lots and lots of different sets of information and making decisions about compiling whether this is a buy or sell signal kinds of things. And even if each one of those sets of decisions was a 1% chance of error, I got 40 or 50 decision points in here. And that's still not a good chance of getting it right consistently. And so I thought, well, I could create a redundancy thing. I'll have 3 different prompts, going after all the same data, and then have them vote. 2 out of 3 say buy, then that must be right, which I thought was kind of crazy. So you got 50-50 chance of each one of them being right, and you're going to take the one that happened to be the 50-50 guessed. Kind of, you didn't get into that, but I thought, wow, that's pretty bad. But then you do redundancy, or you do robust checks, or you do, validation stuff. And he says at that point, now the computing power and the time it takes to do it, and the time it takes to code it and write it and verify it and everything else, I might as well just open the newspaper and read it myself. Kind of thing.
Oh, so it ended up not being worth it in the end. So it didn't perform well.
No, even with a small chance of error, and then you compound that with it's not obvious it's an error when you look at it, right? Because you didn't go through all the summaries of all the news releases and all the market forces and the trends. So the computer does that and says, this is a signal to buy. And it may summarize why, but you don't know what the facts are. So it's not obvious for you to know that it's wrong. Whereas making a product, it's supposed to be a cylinder that holds soda, right? And it comes out square and leaky. We know that's a failure. It's obvious. Whereas in his use case, there was no indicators that you could obviously say, even as a human in, checking the data, you would have to go do all the research to know that it was wrong. Kind of
Yeah.
defeating the purpose of what he's asking it to do. And then he said, well, if it's only good 99% of the time, then let's do the math. I'll lose money. Kind of, I'm oversimplifying his article a little bit, but it's not there yet because of the overhead it takes to get it right.
So he concluded that he couldn't do it that way because it was better for him to continue monitoring and making decisions himself than utilizing an AI to spit out an answer.
And he said, and I make mistakes too, but I have enough information that I can catch them. Whereas the AI system, unless you code it to check and have independent ways to double check its work, it doesn't check. It says the sky is blue. Trust me, kind of thing. And that's where it spiraled out of control, is that if it's, and it made me think of autonomous vehicles and the driving, all the decisions they do with that. I don't know how they do that, how much computing power it takes to make that work.
Yeah, with all of the inputs that they have, and well, with some of the vehicles, they've been collecting data on actual driver cases for years now. So it's an interface with the driver that it provides them extra information and they like it. I don't have one of those cars, but I've ridden in them, like in an Uber and stuff, and they are really very cool. But I know too that on the back end, it's not just cool for the driver. They're also collecting all that information, those use scenarios and use cases. But so they're training it on, what you know. Like with the stock market and the cars, it's a matter of risk
Yep.
with each decision, and within risk is a level of uncertainty. And I guess in the stock market case, he understands, or he's been doing it long enough that he applies his knowledge and his background information
Hmm.
to it. He's not green. Like if I were to do that,
Yeah.
well, I have knowledge and stuff, but I've never played the stock market, so I don't
Right.
know as much as him. So if we were both doing it, I would come at it from a different background and knowledge space, and I'd have my own uncertainty about the risk. It'd probably be greater than his because he
Hmm.
has more of a knowledge base to it. So maybe that's what's missing is that background knowledge and understanding the risk of the decision that's being made. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that would be applied in AI either. I'd have to think more about that.
Yeah. That's the thought. And I think why I wanted to chat about it a little bit today, and we were chatting about a bunch of other stuff, is that we're seeing more and more companies come out with, do your maintenance planning and scheduling all with AI, or set up your factory so that all your predictive maintenance is done with AI management of it. And it makes me think of, well, first off, it's a shiny new thing, and you better have a pretty decent ongoing program with good information and good practices so that when you put a motor on a fan, for example, it's actually aligned. Because
Yeah.
if if the AI systems assumes that its maintenance is done well and it's not, then you just got, what do they call it, lipstick on a pig kind of thing. It's like that's it's
so
like,
this reminds me of an episode of The Office where the two characters were in a car driving to visit a client and they had
Mhm.
on GPS. And the GPS, have you seen this
No, I
episode?
haven't seen this. I can't.
And the GPS is telling them turn right, and they're yelling at each other because they're late for this client. So
Mhm.
so the risks are high, and they're already upset, and they're lost, and they're following this GPS, and it keeps telling them, and in its voice, turn right, and they're yelling at each other. He's like, I'm just gonna turn right because it's telling me what I need to do, and he turns right and drives the car right into a pond. And they're sinking, and comedy continues to ensue. So I kind of see it like that, where you have to understand the limits of the technology, which is I think what you're getting at here too.
Yeah.
Understanding the limits of it, and that it's just not the easy answer that we think it may be.
No, no. I see that also with a factory will put a whole bunch of sensors all over their equipment, and they got terabytes of data coming in every day, and they're hiring more and more IT people and bigger databases and paying AWS or Google or somebody for all this drive space. And says, well, what do you do with this stuff? Well, we haven't figured it out yet. It's just too much data. Why did you put it in?
Yeah. Yeah, you need to have a use for the data. Well, as reliability engineers, you have to, like, if you want to run a test, those tests are expensive. So you
Yeah,
usually have to justify the test based on the information you're going to get so you can make a decision.
right.
But it sounds like in this case, people are just gathering information because it's cheap.
Because it's cheap, and it's going to train their model and so on. And I'm thinking, that really works well in a maintenance kind of situation when you have a consistent process that is relatively constrained and controlled, right? And let's say it's a belt drive on something, and it's chain driven, I should say. And then that chain, because of the forces is under it, will stretch. And at some point, the chain is too long and you got to replace it. And I've learned that if you have a process to actually, every time you lubricate that piece of equipment, you measure the distance between two links. You measure the gap, basically. How long is this chain now? And that has a very consistent, if it's used in a regular way under relatively constant loads, that process of stretching that chain follows a nice, simple curve. And then at some point, it becomes unsafe for that chain to be that long in that particular application. I'm thinking of an escalator in particular where I saw this being done. And depending on the chain and the length and all these other things, it follows a very consistent pattern of how fast it stretches. Now that's perfect for a model that you add, every Monday we measure the chain length, or you have a sensor on it that's measuring it for you. And I have great confidence that that could tell you in ample time to buy the parts on time and set up the procedure to go replace that chain. That would be good. What I see though is too many folks going, well, we're going to use AI to do all this stuff for you. It says, well, do you have good models to train it on for the 6,000 ways your system can fail? Oh no, we'll let AI figure that out.
Well, it's a loop, right?
Yeah. And I don't think it works quite that way. You have absolute garbage data and you're going to train it on that. Okay. How's that going to help you? It's going to give you random answers. You know that, right? Oh, no, it's really smart. The sales guy said it'll figure it out for us in like 20 minutes. Okay. Make sure your contract includes, unexpected failures that your system tells you to go fix that aren't really there, or vice versa, ignoring things that are actually failed, and it doesn't tell you about it. Have them pay for those consequences. I bet you they won't sell it to you.
Yeah.
It's coming along. AI is being credited for lots of productivity boosts and all kinds of cool stuff. Yet until it improves its consistency, its reliability, I don't think it's ready for prime time and really complex systems, or where there's a lack of good data. I don't think that either of those scenarios really justify just trusting it. Oh, there was another article, just a real quick one before we wrap this one up. It was yesterday I saw it, is that there was a study done, and I'm trying to remember what group it was. I saw it in the Pew Research Center articles. And it was, the more people use AI, the less they check it. So the first couple of times they'll double check, that doesn't look right, let me research it. But the more people use it, the more they just trust it, that it's right, independent of whether it's right or not. And so the study was based on frequency of use and number of errors they accepted. And it's very similar to most any other technology. The more you use it, like when I first got an electric calculator, I still had my slide rule and checked it, because if I fat fingered the wrong button, I'd get a wrong answer and I wouldn't know, which I would do. And so I'd check it with my slide rule and go, oh, I made a mistake. As opposed to one of my classmates that had a calculator, and he was convinced that a negative number for the mass of some reaction was okay, and he had a negative 3 grams as his end result. And like, you don't think that might be wrong? Well, no, I didn't. No, it's what came out of the computer. It's good. Like, okay.
Yeah, we have this problem that, and that, okay, so that's not logical, but I can see that being the case, that people just accept the results. So now I know that some companies are iteratively, like if they want to adopt it, the AI for whatever they're doing, it's not just an adoption and go. Like they build in gates and checkpoints, and they use a quality tool like a scorecard to evaluate, hey, are we still getting out of this what we want to get out of it?
Right.
Or is this not going well? So they're constantly monitoring it and thinking about it's not just an all in, hey, it's AI, we're going to adopt it. It's hey, we're going to try this out and then keep checking on it and keep reporting on it. And they use a scorecard to help them do that.
And it's a similar process I've seen in better companies that do that with any new technology or any new piece of equipment or any new, the first CAD machines came in and they were double checked constantly. And even though you got this great CAD machine that can do all these 3D renderings for you, there's still an engineer and the team there doing reviews on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And then we build real ones to see if it actually works. And where there's risk or high risk areas or high sensitivity areas or safety areas, we do a lot of work to make sure it's right. And I don't think AI is any different. It's a tool.
Right.
It needs to be to evaluate it and monitor. And if it's useful, great. If it's not, move on.
Yeah, I like that analogy with the CAD. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
All right, cool. Well, hey, if you're listening to this and realizing that we are not AI generated bots doing this podcast, although there is an app out there that says they could do that. You give it a prompt for a talk and it'll do it for you. I thought that
Yeah.
where's the fun in that? Let us know what you think. How's it going with AI and how are you using it or not? And are you using it with reliability or quality type activities? How's that working? What insights have you learned from that process, or what questions do you have about it? I think would be fun future topics for us. You can get in touch with us over at accendoreliability.com/go/SOR. Dianna and I and the other hosts of the show are available through LinkedIn and our About pages. So plenty of ways for you to get in touch with us. And we do not have a chat-generated chat window for you to talk to. If you contact us, we will contact you back directly. No chat systems in the way. So.
So there's no gatekeeper
No.
to Fred.
No.
The email and you're gonna get it.
That's right. Exactly. And I might use Grammarly to make sure my email is grammatically correct before I send it to you. But I always leave a couple of errors in there just so you know it's real. Mostly because I get tired of figuring out what the right answer is and just like, hey, whatever. Anyway, thanks, Dianna, for the chat. It's now I'm going to go play with AI some more, see what danger I can cause.
Yeah, it's constantly changing. It can be a good productivity tool, but I like your comparison to it with when CAD came out.
Yeah.
If we treat it like that, especially in engineering applications, I think we'll have more success with it too.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, we'll talk to you again soon, Dianna.
Okay. I'll start adding some mistakes in my stuff so you'll know it's me.
All right, cool.
Bye, Fred.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.